Today we're going to be discussing Forms Designer. My name is Joanne Barnard and I will be your host for this session. Nancy will be on questions. In order to ask a question, please will you use the question icon, which you can find on the right-hand side of your screen. It looks like a question mark in a speech bubble. You will need to type your questions through to us as you are all muted on entry and we cannot unmute you. So guys, firstly, just so you know, because you are going to be watching the presentation, sometimes web browsers do freeze. The sound may disappear or the screen may freeze. If that happens, what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to press F5 on your keyboard or Control F5. This should refresh the session. In a worst case scenario, you may need to exit and re-enter. Please, however, let me know if this happens. Just because I'm presenting doesn't mean that I can't have internet issues. And if the majority of you are telling me my screen's frozen or you cannot hear me, I will then know that it's something on my side and I can then rectify that. That being said, the session is being recorded. You should receive the recorded session tomorrow along with your certificate. If you do not get this, you are welcome to email me and just advise me that you haven't received your recording, and I will send that accordingly. We are still uploading the recordings to YouTube, and this recording will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So guys, that being said, we're going to be discussing Forms Designer, and what Forms Designer is it is a utility that allows you to go and customize your customer and supplier documents. Now, with Forms Designer, it's really, really important that you know the form names. So in Pastel, you don't have something called customer invoice, and that's what you use. They are named very specifically. And a way to find the names is to go into Help, Pastel Help. You can go into your search and you can go Form File Names. And guys, here you will see the form file names. So what it does is it's trying to show you what those form file names should be. However, I'm going to try to explain this as easily as I can to you. So there are elements that make up the actual form name. And those are mostly what are you actually, what are you customizing? Are you customizing customer documents, supplier documents, both? That is your CS. C stands for customer, S stands for supplier. And then what exactly then it is what you are customizing in terms of customer and supplier documents, customer and supplier statements, interstore transfer documents, manufacturing picking slips, that type of thing. So CS doc actually stands for customer supplier documents. So this would be your invoice, your invoices, your credit notes, your sales orders, your purchase orders. Now, can you customize those all individually? Yes, you can. And then you will see the names here. So C quote would be your customer quotes. So docs means all of the docs, whereas if you're just going to have CINVC, that is a customer invoice, whereas SINVC is a supplier invoice, along with the supporting documents. But a lot of the time we just stick to CS doc or C doc or S doc. So customer supplier documents or customer supplier statement or remittance, which is MTH. Then guys, the end part of the name is what paper you are using. So you need to know, are you using pre-printed? Are you using plain single sheet? Are you using header? And that's where that comes in. That's where you'll have SP or you will have CR. So S stands for single and P stands for plain, whereas CR stands for continuous, pre-printed. So you need to know what paper you're using. So you can see here, plain, pre-printed, single sheet, continuous, and H stands for header. So that's how you will be able to name your form. So is it a customer, a supplier, both? Is it a document? Is it an order? Is it an invoice, etc.? And then what paper am I using? Now guys, this differs depending on what we're printing to. So Sage has two ways that we print. We either print to screen or we email our documents and our statements out. So print to screen and printer is exactly, it would be, for example, cs.sp.enz when it's customized. Whereas that would be my print to screen and printer. But if I'm going to email that to a customer, I have to put in PDF. And that goes between what you are printing in terms of documents or statements and what type of paper you're using. So if we stick to a customer supplier document on single sheet, it would be cs.pdfsp.enz. Now guys, when we actually go into Forms Designer, firstly, in Sage 50C, you have to open a company or you're not going to be able to open Forms Designer. So once you open your company, you're then going to go to Utility. You will see the Forms Assistant. That is a very quick way to maybe add a logo. And yes, there are pre-designed forms that you can use, but then they may not be exactly what you want. And that's where Forms Designer comes in. So Forms Designer launches the whole Forms Designer program. And when it launches it, it's going to ask you if you want to open a document. When you go File, Open, in the Forms folder or in the Company folder. So it's going to check if you already have pre-designed forms. So do you have a customized form? If you do, it'll tell you Company folder. In this case, we're going to go and create a whole new form. So I'm going to say in the Form folder. Now guys, often I've been asked when people get here, they're like, okay, so do we go into new forms or old forms? Guys, ignore the new and old forms completely. You can straight in the Forms folder, either search for what you're looking for or having used the help file, we can do CS Doc. Now, you'll note that there are ones called CS Doc TMP Formal Blue. Now, guys, these are forms that we designed that look really cool. This was when we brought in our different colors. And you are welcome to maybe go into one of these that you like and change it. Just bearing in mind, these are only for single plain A4 paper. This is not for continuous preprint. The size will be completely incorrect for continuous preprint. So this was to kind of show the features in version 17 when we had upgraded Forms Designer and you could add color and you could add rounded corners and stuff. We created this type of form. Now, you may really like this type of form, you may want to use this type of form, but you may want to make changes, and that's what Forms Designer is here for. It's so that you can design the form as you need to. Okay, so guys, basically they're saying, I've got a comment that says that you can actually go and open the Forms Designer EXE, not in Sage 50C anymore, you have to open a company. It actually states that, unless they've changed something in one of the later builds, in which case I stand corrected. So guys, initially when 50C came out, and I may stand corrected, you did have to open a company, but yes, another way of opening it would be just to go into, so it could have changed, and then I do stand corrected. You were able in older versions, Sage 50C, they changed this specifically because the form needs to be in the company folder, but you can also open it from here, and then it should open Forms Designer. And know that it was preventing this at one point, so it does seem that they did change that on the later versions. Thank you for pointing that out. So guys, if you do need to open Forms Designer because you don't want to work in Pastel, you can also come here. Thank you for that tip. Apologies, on earlier versions of 50C, you couldn't. Guys, irrespective, once you've opened Forms Designer and you have opened a form that you want to work on, there are a number of things that you can do. Now, for example, you may want to look at the format and you may want to convert this. So you may find a form that you like, but you don't want it to be in color. Maybe you want it to be in grayscale. You can convert this to grayscale to actually save on your printing. Now, this may only be for the printed form. Maybe on your email forms, you would like to keep the color. So you can come here and you can convert to grayscale. That will convert it to grayscale. You can also right-click on certain fields and go to properties. If we go to properties, a block should appear on the right-hand side and it should show you border false, bold true. Is this an individual or a title or a main font? What is the font name? What is the font size? So guys, a lot of the time on these specific forms, it will be an individual type of situation where you can, from here, actually come and completely design your form. So before in Sage 50C, or in Sage Pastel Accounting, actually, you would go to File, Printer Font Setup, and you would see that you have something called a main and title font. If, for example, I had to open my normal CS doc, okay, so guys, if you have a customized form, this message will come up telling you there is a customized form. Do you not want to open that form? If you say no, it's going to open up the form from the forms folder. If you say yes, it'll open up the form from your company folder. Now, from here, you'll see that if I happen to click on properties, and I may have just gotten rid of my properties, apologies. No. Sorry guys, I do just have the menu for the webinar in my way. Here you'll see that it tells you that the font mode is main, and you'll notice that I cannot change the Arial or the font name or the font size. This would have to be done from within Pastel. However, if it says individual, it means that you can in fact do that, and that's a really, really cool thing. So if you are using this type of form and you actually want to change it and you want it to have individual because maybe you want to change the form name to be bigger, that type of thing, again, you would go to Format, Convert, and you would say all data fields and text to individual font. If you do that, what it will do is it will then change them to individual fonts. You will see now that you can change your font color. You can also change the font name and the font type. So guys, that is a very specific way to make this very customizable. You may have very specific colors that you want to use, your company colors. If you want to do that, you come in and you go more colors, and then you go to custom, and here you will enter your red, green, and blues. And you will then be able to select your specific company colors, which is also really, really awesome. So you can make this completely the way you want it to. So I've been asked, why can't you change individual font to main or title? Because they didn't do it that way around. That's why. They didn't design it that way. Guys, like I've said before, we'll do things in a specific way. If that's not what you want, then you don't have something set as individual, then you would need to not convert it. Unfortunately, when we create certain features, we're not 100% sure what people need or want. We'll check, we'll send it to our BPs, but then they themselves will come back to us with info. That wasn't something that we received. So again, I can log it as a suggestion. But guys, I do want to point something out. With Sage 50cloud Pastel Accounting, it is not actually a cloud product, and it is never actually going to be a fully cloud product. So the chances of them implementing certain suggestions anytime soon isn't something that's probably going to happen. I'm just playing open cards, because a lot of the work that's happening is happening on our cloud native product. So while I can make suggestions and go, guys, they'd like a way to turn individual to main or title, we can do that. Again, if it's not physically possible for us to do that, the suggestion will be rejected. So I'll log it as a suggestion, but why didn't they do it? because they didn't. It wasn't a feature that we thought of doing. We thought to change it to individual, and the reason for that is most people were very frustrated with the main and title fonts and often wanted to change one specific thing. And so we advised to have individual. That was actually the suggestion that we implemented. Guys, that doesn't mean that you have to come and change everything. So if your main and title font is set up the way that you want, you then can convert to individual and just change the things that you want to change. Unfortunately, no, you can't go back. Much like if you convert to grayscale, you can't really change it back unless you saved it before then. You can, however, with grayscale replace colors. So if you know what color the grayscale is, for example, you can tell it that you want to change it to a different color, but you would need to know exactly what the grayscale was to change that. So that is the replace colors. So guys, the format convert is a very powerful section of Forms Designer. It is a newer section that we brought in, and it was to obviously make the form more customizable. That was its main reason. The convert to grayscale is to obviously save your printer and the ink so that you're not printing all sorts of colors, but you don't need to do that. And then you can come and quickly replace colors. So if again we go to one of those other forms, no. So let's say, for example, we want to use progressive blue. Guys, here we can see that there are a number of different, well, there are two main blues. Now, maybe we like the light blue, but we don't really like this dark blue. This is where you would want to go in and do your convert replace colors. It will then, if you select a field with that, select the correct blue, and you can change it to maybe a blue that you prefer. And it will then change them. So that's what that is for, just to change something specific. So guys, we've discussed that. Then we've obviously got our different fields. So maybe you need to increase something. Maybe, for example, you find that the rows are running over each other. Now, Forms Designer, unfortunately, is not very intelligent when it comes to knowing where the bottom of its page is. What it knows is that it can take the following single lines. So it can only take, say, 20 lines. And it doesn't realize that those lines are wrapping. So that's when it goes on to another line. So it'll go, oh, this whole thing is one line. And that's where you have the text going over your footer. When that happens, you often need to either reduce the size of the text, or what you may have to do is come and minimize certain fields and maximize others. You may also need to remove information in the header and the body that is unimportant or something that you don't need. Maybe you don't want to see the discount percentage, or maybe you don't need to see the units where it says each. You want to see the unit price, but you don't want to see where it says each or kg or liter. Maybe that is not something that is important to you. In this instance, you can then remove that from here so that you can increase your fields. The way that you do that is you would select the field that needs to be increased. You would then take your mouse and put it where you see the blocks, and you would pull it one way or the other. To make it smaller, I'm going to the left, and to make it bigger, I'm going to the right, depending obviously on which side you're on. If I start on the left-hand side, going left would make it bigger, and going right would make it smaller. So guys, this is where you play with that. Yes, you can also then pull it that way. That's not going to make the text size larger though. So that's just to make it fit. So often when we add things and we move them, now I'm out of alignment. That is also a major problem when you are designing forms, because you don't want something all higgledy-piggledy. You know, maybe you're adding your banking details and now it looks like this. That looks horrendous. So guys, again, there are things within Forms Designer that you can select. So holding Control, I'm going to select all of my different fields. For some reason this is selecting my picture field. So guys, as you can see, my picture field and my company name. My picture field has taken over my company name. What I'm going to do is delete my picture field, and now I can select my company name. Holding Control, I'm going to select these options. From here, again, I'm going to go into my format, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my horizontal and my vertical spacing. This is to make sure that my spacing is correct, my horizontal spacing and my vertical spacing. So I can go equal, for example, or I can go increase or decrease. Vertical, same thing. Or alternatively, I can move these and I can choose where they're going. You need to be on the right side. And then guys, on top of this, these fields, left, center align, right align, are very important. So again, holding Control, you're going to select one of these. Now I want these to be on the left-hand side. I can now grab all three of them and align them accordingly. Again, holding Control, I select my first one, then holding Control, I select all of my options. And again, I can make sure that they are aligned. Again, with my format, I can check my vertical spacing and I can check my horizontal spacing. Now, horizontal spacing obviously pushes it out. So you need to know, obviously, what am I putting? Am I doing horizontal? Am I doing vertical? And you would select your options. Now, guys, here we can also see that this has now made this very large. So I may not want it to be very large, so I can move them accordingly. And this is how you just play with it and you keep making sure that it is actually working the way that you want it to. You can also make sure that your fields are moving together. So if you want to move them one way to the other, you can also hold Control, select them, and then you can move them around. So maybe you actually want your company information at the top and you want your logo in this bottom corner here, or you don't even need this company information, or maybe there are parts of this company information you don't need. So that's where all of this information is important. This is also where, for example, if I did go over my logo, so if I put that in, my logo is now over my company fields. Now I may have made a mistake and I want to move my company fields, but I don't want to move the logo. In this instance, again, I can select my logo or my picture box and I can tell it to go to the back. I can now also select my options. So guys, initially I deleted it just to show you that you could delete it, but you can also bring it to the front or to the back, depending. You don't have to delete the picture box. In the event that you can't then select it, you can bring it forward, or again, you can push it behind. So you play with these two options. It's to bring items forward or behind, so you can select them. If I select them again to add a picture, I go to Properties. If the Properties doesn't show, it may be that it was already there. We can select Picture. We want our three dots. If we go to our three dots, we can then select an image. Okay, guys, I'm going to go see if I can find my Sage one. Rather, I thought it was in Pictures, but I think I was wrong. And I can select my logo. Now guys, if you make your logo smaller, what it's going to do is it's going to maintain the aspect ratio, which means it's going to put in the best image with the highest resolution in that block that you've put it in. And again, the way that you do that is insert picture. If you're going to insert a data field, those are the fields on the right-hand side. And that would be, for example, your aging, your company address, your company business telephone number. So guys, a lot of people go, where is this company information pulled from? Now, the company information is pulled from when you go to set up company parameters. You fill in your company parameters specifically, and you fill in information as well as your name, the address, that type of thing. So the company information is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines right here. But as we can see, we now have something that says telephone, telephone to mobile, VAT registration. So guys, you don't necessarily need to put this information in the information box anymore because we've added more fields to this information as requested. So here you may want to rather come and find that field because maybe you just haven't used these company fields. And you then want to come in, find these company fields, and this is where you would find company contact email, company business tel, company contact surname. So anything that says company is to do with this information here. It's your company details. The information itself are the 5 lines here, but the contact name, contact surname, email, telephone 1 and 2, that is this information. Company business, company contact email, contact first name, mobile number, surname, that is this information here. So you can always come and grab one of these options. Now guys, with regards to the VAT, that would be your tax reference number, if I'm not mistaken, and you can always pull that in. But here you will see that this is a blue field. Now a blue field means that it's just going to put the number here. It's not going to tell you what it is. So let's say, for example, we take company business tel. That's what it's going to do, is it's going to take your company business telephone number and it's just going to put it here. So all you're going to see is, for example, if it's a Joburg number, 011-304-3000. But the person who's looking at this is not going to know what this is. In this instance, what you may need to do while you want this on your invoice or on your documents or on your statements, you may also want to go and add a text field, just so that you can actually state what it is. When you add a text field, it'll tell you what the label is. You need to come to the label, then you can go and here you can see it's now putting in exactly what this is. So this is my company telephone. You would then size it accordingly and you would try to make this fit as well as possible. This is where selecting this, and again, may be the best bet so that it actually ties up, guys. And you can then have that information. So that's really important that you know that although those fields are there, it's not going to say like it does here where you go tel, fax. You're going to have to put that in. Tel, fax, mobile, etc. So please bear that in mind. And then guys, very similarly is when we add our banking details. So those are normally the reasons why people need this. They want to specifically add information, or they want to specifically design their documents to look a very specific way. Now, something to bear in mind is also that just because you can view this, so you can go here and you can go view, and you can, for example, view grid. You can take the grid off if you wish. I do find that the grid helps. This is also another way to bring in properties or to remove them. And field list. So guys, if you can't see the field list, you need to come to the view field list here. And if you want your properties, you can also click on the properties here. Now, there are a number of things here that are important, and these become available when you are working in the grid. So guys, if you look at some of these options, they should tell you what they do. So for example, align to grid would align this specifically to the grid itself. You can also choose your select, and there should be a snap to grid. There it is, a snap to grid. Now, what snap to grid does is it means that you're moving within the dots. So it's not a free move. You wouldn't be able to actually freehand this. If you deselect that option, that means that I can move this anywhere I want and it won't snap to the grid. So some people find actually snapping to the grid a lot easier in terms of the alignment. But remember, you can also select the items and then you can align them accordingly. It will put it back into the alignment. When working with the spacing, that is something that you need to be aware of, because often that spacing can make things very big or very small, and that's where you would need to then maybe look here at the actual properties on the right hand side, and you would need to then select your height, level, and height, left and top, and then width. So mostly it would be your height and your width that would be important, and in this instance it's normally the height that goes a little bit awry. So you can also put it here to make sure that they are all the same and go, actually I want them all to be 3.5, and you can go through each one and tell it to be 3.5. So guys, there are a lot of ways to use Forms Designer. So what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to add a picture. So remember I went to, sorry guys, that was text. You go to insert picture. We're going to draw our picture box. It should automatically open. If it doesn't, where you see your properties, you click on the three dots. And guys, I would advise that you save your logo in the Pastel folder, your root folder. So here, for example, because that would be a better place to save it than on a machine whereby it's in a separate place. And the reason for that is if you are using a workstation, for example, and so I have my logo on my desktop in something called PC Backup in logos, and then in another form called logos. This in itself could cause an issue. So I am the only one who has this folder. Now, if my workstations are trying to see where this logo is, the logo may go missing. So what we advise is that you actually, on the server machine, put your logo in the root folder. The root folder is the Pastel folder or Express folder directly. From there, if the workstation loses it, you just copy the logo into the root folder on the workstation as well. The reason for this is if I'm looking right now, I'm going here and I'm going to my local drive and I'm going into my Pastel folder. It knows that I'm going to my C drive. I'm not sure why it doesn't think that why don't you think that that's compatible? Because I actually know that it is. Sorry guys, I didn't actually check. Oh, it's a PNG file, that's why. Guys, please make sure that it is also a JPEG or a BMP. Otherwise, we're going to have the same issue. You shouldn't necessarily have to resize it. Okay, so guys, this isn't really going to let me do that. I was pretty sure that I actually did have a JPEG here. Let me just quickly find my JPEG files very quickly because I was pretty sure that I did have. My apologies about this. Okay, so guys, I'm going to use this JPEG here. So like I was saying, please make sure that it actually is in the root of your Pastel folder. Make sure that it is a BMP or a JPEG file. Otherwise, much like my PNG, it's not going to pick it up. And then when you open it, it will, maintaining the aspect ratio, put that image in there. Now, if we look, you'll see that this does say C Pastel 19 and the file name. If on the workstation you are mapping to the P drive, that may be why it's not finding the logo. That's why we then advise just copy the logo to the same location, which would just be straight into the Pastel or Express folder. So guys, that's just a tip. If you find that your logo often disappears, especially on the workstation, then the workstation adds it, then it disappears on the server, then you add it from the server. It's because of this little issue here. To my knowledge, we've resolved it, but if it is still an issue, a workaround is just have the logo saved on everyone's machine in their C drive in their Pastel folder. It will then show up on the form. Then guys, very quickly, if I want to add my banking details, a lot of the time people add it here to the bottom. Now, the messages 1, 2, and 3, where is it picking that up? Guys, it's picking that up from your setup, customer documents, messages. So it's picking it up from here. What have you put as your messages? That's where it's picking that up from. So if you can go there, you can add the banking details there, that's perfectly fine. And then the terms, it's picking up from the terms. Alternatively, you can come in and go text. And we then just type our text in. So now guys, again, as I said, you'll notice that obviously this text is not very well aligned, and we probably don't want it to look like that. So let's do this. Now guys, as well here, you may want to go, banking details, name of bank, type of bank, branch code, account number, or you may just put the details in, but you would want to align these. So again, what we can do is we can use these options. So here we've aligned them on the one hand, but we may want size to same width or size to same height. It'll do that as well. And then guys, this is where our whole horizontal and vertical spacing comes in. So if I go equal, you will see that it now has equal spacing. So it's put all of that together. Yes, can I make these the same width? I absolutely can by selecting that option. That's for the same height. And then I went and I sorted out my vertical spacing to be equal. So just know what spacing you're working with. Horizontal is across, vertical is up and down. Now these aren't in the same place. So again, guys, I might not wish for my banking details to be in the middle and my other details to be elsewhere. If you do accidentally select something that you don't want to, just click off, hold Control again, and then select the options that you want. And again, I can just align accordingly. So you notice these two moved up. Once they're all aligned, I can then move them as I need to. So that's just a really nice, quick way to make sure that it's all aligned and it all looks good. So guys, that's how we play around with this. As I said, if we want to change colors and things, if we're talking about main and title fonts, you can't do that. If you want to change your borders, this is where it says rounded corners false or true. If you want to make them rounded, you would say true. If you want them to be squares, you would say false. And then guys, here you will see that you can change your border colors. So you may not want your text to show color, but maybe here you do. You can change your border colors accordingly. You can also choose if you want to fill the box. So do I want a full color? Maybe you want the bottom to stand out. And then what type of line do you want? Do you want it to be dashes? Do you want it to be dots? Do you want it to be solid, dash dot, dash dot dot? So it's entirely up to you what you would like. You can change those, your boxes. To put in a box, you go to insert box. So it's not text, it's not database, it's not picture, it is box, or you can put in a line. So this, for example, here is a line. You can add those lines if you wish. If you want to take your box and have a line through it, this is a line here. So guys, it's very customizable, but as long as you know what you're using, you can see it here. So here, for example, I may want to move it up, I may want to move it down. That is a line that I've added, whereas this is a box. The rest of these are all lines. So I split this box up to create my line. So that is the difference with your insert. Your format is your alignment. So you can align to grid. You can have your size, same width, same height. This would depend on if you are using this option. And you've selected multiple options. I generally use either my vertical spacing and my horizontal spacing, but as you saw, what I'll normally do is I'll select my options. I will align them using either the left, middle, right accordingly, or top, depending. And then I will do my vertical, my horizontal alignments accordingly. And normally I make that equal, especially for vertical. I make it equal for my horizontal. I don't normally use the horizontal alignment. This is normally where I'll just use the top, or I will use the bottom option, or this middle. Aligns middle, aligns top, aligns bottom. So guys, as long as you know what these options are, you should be able to use Forms Designer quite easily. Remember, you do need to use the control quite a lot to move it around. And then guys, if we go to our file, often people go, okay, well, I previewed this, it looked really good, I'm really happy. Guys, sometimes this doesn't always preview 100% properly. This is where it's a good idea to also save. So if we're going to save our documents, it's going to save as an ENZ. This is where you always need to save it in the company folder. So your customized forms, in this case cs.sp.enz, needs to be in the company folder. And remember, I said that there are two types. So I have my print and my screen and print, which is my straight cs.sp, and then my email. Now, if I want them to be identical, I need to save both. So I can't save one and not the other. I have to save both. Otherwise, you'll go, oh, my screen is fine and my print is fine, but when I email my clients, it doesn't have my logo, it doesn't this. Guys, chances are you forgot to save it as the PDF. Now, my advice is always come in and just have a look and check that you're happy with it. So I will normally come in here and I will just tell it to select everything, and I'll go okay to check that it is pulling through. In this instance, mine isn't pulling through. Now, in the event that this happens, guys, I can see that this is not even remotely what I have saved. This is a paper style issue. What that means is that I need to go to File, Printer Font Setup, and I need to check that my paper style is set correctly, because I told the system that I'm using single plane. In this instance, I'm very clearly not using single plane. So this is where I need to come in. I need to go to paper style, plain, next, single sheet, next, finish. And if I haven't set my printer, this is also where I can set my printer. Now, in this instance, I've only changed this for the quotation. You can either do this one by one and for every tab, or you can go copy to all documents and you can go copy to all tabs. Guys, if you say copy to all users, it will copy the printer, the main and title font, and whether it's portrait, landscape, and you get the page size directly from the printer. It will not copy the paper style assistant. So if I go copy to users, the paper style assistant is not included. So just because I fixed it on my user does not mean that a different user will not experience the same issue. So copy to all documents means that I don't have to do it one by one and change it. And copy to all tabs means the same thing. I don't have to come and check my statements and go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it is plain single sheet. Guys, the reason why we allow you to have different paper styles for different document types as well as different tabs is your statement may print on continuous pre-printed paper, but your tax invoices may print on single plain paper. So you can have that set up. It just means that you'll have a number of different customized forms. But you can also very quickly, if everything is plain A4 paper, set it up the way I just did. Copy to all documents, copy to all tabs, or even if it's pre-printed continuous paper, if everything's that way, you're using a dot matrix printer, you can do the same. Once you've done that, you need to also check your control panel. And you need to make sure that your devices and printers are set up correctly. So guys, if it is pre-printed continuous paper, you will need to know exactly what the width and height is, because you are going to have to go and set up your printer serve properties. You are then going to create a new form and we're going to call it Pastel. You are then going to put in the width and the height, and you are going to save it. So guys, I'm going to save it exactly, let's just go 25 by 25. So you'll need a ruler to check that, and you will go save form. We now have one called Pastel. You can then close this. Here in your control panel, you will then need to go to your printing preferences or printer properties. Depends on the printer itself. And what you're going to do is you are going to look for where it talks about the paper size. So here it says A4. In this case, I would need to come and look, and hopefully it would give me my pastel. So it's not, I can then do my custom millimeters or inches, and I can set it up accordingly. So guys, hopefully in this instance, it would actually just say pastel because I did go to my printer serve properties, and there should be a pastel form here. If it doesn't pull through, you will need to speak to your IT. So we've got a pastel form and we've got our pastel. But if your printer itself is not pulling that through, you cannot see it. Then guys, either you need to go to custom, or else you will need to speak to your IT because it's probably that they haven't given you the option. So every printer is different, guys. In my case, my Canon is not allowing me to check my printer serve properties. But if I had to do something similar in terms of my PDF, so I just want to make sure I haven't already done this. Okay, so it is here. Hopefully it would be here. So guys, please bear in mind that my IT have locked out my computer, which is why it's not actually letting me choose my specific options, but this is where you would choose that. If it is A4, again, you will go to the machine that's a default or the printer that you're using. You would go to your printing preferences or printing properties. You may need to go to both. And this is where you're going to set it to A4. Guys, because PCs and we have Windows on and that comes from America, a lot of this time it is set to letter. You need to set that to A4 and you need to check it on all the different options. So you need to make sure, is there anywhere else where this asks about a paper size? In my instance, it asks about it on quick setup, on page setup, and then I would go OK or save and OK. So whether it's A4, you need to select A4. If it's custom, pre-printed, continuous, printer serve properties, and then select your page setup. From there, again, we can come in. We're going to view customer documents, tax invoices. And hopefully it's now going to bring up our custom form. And I can see, okay, am I happy with this custom form? Is it properly aligned? Like this is now sitting in the middle here, whereas this is right against there. What do I want to do with this? I don't like how it looks. I can then go back into my forms designer and I can change this accordingly. So guys, this is the basics of how forms designer works. This is how you can add a picture, how you can add text. If you have overlapping fields, how you play with the fields in your body to allow them to increase or decrease. And if you need to increase the font size, is it individual? Is it main? Is it title? If you're going to leave it as main and title, again, guys, in this instance, you would come into File, Printer Font Setup, and you would change the main or title font here. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if there are any questions and I'm going to answer said questions accordingly. If there's anything you need explained further, please let me know. Okay, so guys, we did explain opening the Forms Designer EXE. Thank you so much for the delegate for pointing that out. I was under the impression that you still had to open a company and you couldn't open from there. So thank you so much for that. Definitely does work that way, guys. Remember, you can also open Forms Designer from the root folder by going to Forms Designer EXE. Thank you so much for that tip. That was awesome. Then please show how to make the unit price column bigger if one has amounts bigger than $1 million. Okay, so guys, it's exactly the same as I made the line item bigger. Normally the line item is the one that runs over multiple lines, but again, you might have to minimize some and maximize others. So to move this, I move it up. Now you can see I need it to still be where the quantity is. So I'm moving these fields. And again, you may not need the units. Maybe it's not something that you need, or maybe the unit's taking up too much space. Again, we can minimize these, and then where we see unit price, and guys, Forms Designer is a bit finicky. You may need to play around, move it backwards and forwards. But here, this is where you can then increase it. Make sure that you don't overlap the other fields. So you don't want to do that. You don't want where you've got the unit price going over, for example, the discounts, or the unit price going over the units. So you need to make sure that they don't overlap, but you can also move these up if you need to. Put them against each other, and then you can increase them as you see fit. So again, it's where you see the squares, and you just put it on the middle block and you increase it one way or the other to make it bigger until it fits on one box or one line. Guys, if you can't get it to do that, that is where you may need to go and make the font size on the body smaller, either by doing it individually or by changing that main and title font. If the main and title font will not change, that is where I would absolutely advise that you change them into individual fonts, and then you change the font size accordingly. Please let me know if that helps. Okay, so guys, with regards to why can't you change individual to main and title as per design, unfortunately, as we discussed that, sometimes we're not sure how people will want to use the system. This is where suggestions come from. But then guys, just to manage the suggestions we're putting through, a lot of work is being done on cloud native, not so much on cloud enabled. That doesn't mean they aren't putting improvements into cloud enabled. They just are putting more into our cloud native products. Just so you guys know, I am currently running webinars on the difference between Sage 50 Cloud and Sage Business Cloud Accounting. So I am running a webinar on that, and those are pretty awesome webinars, guys, where we discuss a lot of things, and you can see if cloud native is maybe the way that you want to go. We'll log it as a suggestion, but it's just as per design. They did it the one way, they didn't think of doing it the other. Most people, when they suggested wanting a change, wanted it to be on an individual basis. Okay, so guys, apparently there's a double border around one of the blocks in the body of the form, and it's been very difficult to remove it. If that is the case, what you can try to do is obviously to select the body, and you can actually try to just delete it. Guys, if I remember correctly, there was actually a defect whereby even if you removed it, there was still another box here, and it was logged. I would need to go and check if that defect has been corrected, but that you may be having the same issue. So what I would suggest is that you remove the box and see if you then print. If it doesn't print better, if it is still showing the double, but there is no double box here, then please let us know. It's probably part of that defect, unless the defect's been fixed. And please make sure you're on the latest build of Sage 50C, which is 19.3.3, I think. So please make sure you're on the latest, because obviously if it is a defect, we fix it in the latest build. Other builds will still have the issue, but I would delete the box completely. Remember, you can always add the box back by going to Insert Box and then just putting your box back. But I would actually remove it. Obviously, then to change your box, you can do it that way. So that would be my advice, other than the answer that was given to you from Nancy. Can the forms be changed from portrait to landscape? Yes, they can. You do this by going to your printer setup. So File, Printer Setup. And then guys, from here, you would select the printer you're going to select, and you're going to change it to landscape here. Change your size there, and you, okay. And then it would advise you accordingly. The default printer has been changed, etc., and it should change it accordingly there. Yeah, if you remove the extra fields that you don't need. Okay, so guys, when you ask, can you add more characters in the description field? Guys, Pastel itself has limitations. So if we go to edit customer accounts, for example, or there are limitations on the number of characters here. So no matter how big you make that box, or if you delete the characters, it's not going to mean that you can go over, for example, 40 characters or 60 characters. No, that's a limitation of the program, not Forms Designer. But if you see that the line is wrapping, so there's too much in the line item description and it's wrapping onto two lines, that is where, if you remove unnecessary fields, you can stretch it to fit onto one field. I hope that that explains that. So the character limitations, where you can only enter a certain number of characters, that is a limitation here. So guys, that's not a limitation of Forms Designer. That's a limitation here where it only allows 40 characters. So, you know, if you're talking about those, no. If you're talking about the line item description where you are actually processing, you change that description. Yeah. Sorry, I just want to reject. So I just wanted to be sure there in terms of the item description and stuff. So guys, if you're talking about here, again, if a limitation is set, you can't change the limitation, but to my knowledge, I'd need to work out quickly how much the limitation is. Customers are still 40. Sorry guys, I do check it because I do know that we have suggestions around that. Like this is accounting software, and to my knowledge, this can just, so that also has a limitation. So I think it's also 40 if I'm not mistaken, or it is still 40. Yeah. So guys, the limitation is still 40, so no. It won't change it being 40, but it does, the whole point of that is actually just to allow you to print on one line, because unfortunately in that regard, Forms Designer is not very smart. It knows that in terms of line items, it can have, for example, 15 or 20, and it doesn't realize that the line item description is wrapping, and that's why it prints over the footer. So that's why you would remove and increase it. Hold on, I think that's with regards. Okay, the person with the double border, what I just showed you now, please let me know if what I showed you helps. As I said, if you can't remove it completely because it's part of the defect where there is a double block, remove the one, see if that works. If it doesn't work, I'll just follow up with Dev on how far they are with that defect. Guys, so if guys, we do have VPs on these sessions and people who are willing to help you with Forms Designer. If that's something that you're prepared to pay their time for, and guys, even if you request a session from us, you pay for those sessions to customize forms. It's something that is chargeable. So if you want our business partners to help you, we've got a business partner who's like, hey, I'm really happy to try from my side. And if they're happy for me to give you their details, I will happily do so. Please send me an email, and please can they advise if they're happy with that. Okay, so guys, a workaround that's been given, and I'm going to be honest, I don't agree with it because mapping a server to itself actually causes a looping with registration, and I don't agree with mapping a server to itself. But in terms of my PC, it is mapped to itself only because I need to do certain videos as a workstation. But guys, I have seen that be an issue. So it's something to do with care. A way around the logo disappearing is to create a map drive on the server and to map the server to itself. So very much what I've done, where I've mapped myself to my own PC. That can cause issues with corruption, though, to be honest. So while I appreciate that this can work, I don't personally think that it's worth it. And the reason I don't think it's worth it is the server doesn't need to be mapped to itself. And when you add a company on the server, you're telling it to add from a C drive, but you've got it mapped to its P drive. And I've found at times when we've had specific errors on Pastel, really bad errors, where we've had to log into the machine. Often when I stop the server mapping to itself, it actually gets rid of a lot of issues. and the system is a little bit more stable. So it's something you can try and see if that helps, but honestly, a better workaround is just copy the logo onto every machine in the Pastel folder. The reason it does that is in Forms Designer, when you look at the logo, it is specifically looking at the C drive. So here it's going, oh, I'm looking at the C drive Pastel folder company logo. On the workstation, it's not in the C drive. That's the problem. So when it goes to look at the C drive on a workstation, it's like, oh, I don't see that logo here because it's not the server's C drive. So honestly, just copying the logo in here, I feel is safer, just because of the issues I've picked up when we have fixed certain issues within Pastel where the server's mapped to itself. So guys, this is not something that should be done. I do this because I produce certain videos, and companies corrupting on my side doesn't actually matter. I don't need to produce financials. I just test stuff. So normally I do deselect this. I've done a video recently, and that's why mine is mapped to itself. So it is a viable suggestion, but it is something that comes with certain dangers, just saying, unless I've totally misunderstood why the errors were caused. But having chatted to IT guys, they've told me as well, there's no reason for the server to be mapped to itself necessarily. And it's something they would prefer doesn't happen. And that was from a couple of network engineers I'm buddies with. But it is a viable option if you want to try it. I would rather just copy it into the C drive of every machine. How do I move the footer line up to make the body of the invoice shorter? Regrettably, you can't. It's as per design. Yeah, in old Forms Designer, it was available. In the new Forms Designer, they unfortunately moved it. So we'll log it as a suggestion, but as per design in this point, you can't. Okay, so the maximum 40. Sorry, guys, I'm just reading. Okay, guys, I've explained how to resolve overlapping lines. I'm just checking if there's any more. Okay, so guys, I don't see any further. I think that I've answered everything. Guys, if I haven't answered, please just repost your question. I see Nancy's also answered a lot of the questions. So guys, I'm really hoping that that helps. I do see a couple of people going, hey, because we don't really tear statements anymore, we don't need the right-hand side of statements. No, guys, you don't, and so you can use Forms Designer to remove that if you so wish. Again, yeah, guys, we can absolutely put that as a suggestion, but you can also go and remove that section, just redesign it. And then you would like to remove the remittance. Does this mean a redesign? Can you just advise when you say you want to remove the remittance? So guys, remittance is a supplier statement, we call a customer statement a statement. Do you want to remove the word remittance, or do you want to actually remove the supplier statement? Or I just need you to give me a little bit more info. Then I can definitely answer that. Because yeah, I mean, guys, if you don't want the form file name, so form name, you can delete that and just add text and go statement. It's just Pastel calls it a remittance. So that's why I'm not sure that I'm understanding the question. Otherwise, guys, I do hope that this was useful to you. I do know that I already have a YouTube video on Forms Designer on our YouTube channel. It was done a while ago. You guys are welcome to go and check that one out. Maybe I answered in a different way, or there was something else that I went over. Please feel free to go and have a look at that. Otherwise, guys, if there are no further questions, you're welcome to log out. The video will be made available to you tomorrow at about this time. Okay, with regards to tearing off the right-hand side, so guys, if you are interested in how you would do that, so I'm going to quickly just open up a statement. Again, guys, there are easy ways to do this. I mean, CSMTH. So guys, firstly, you've got the new ones that we've created. Those ones don't have it. So that would be a really quick way to do this, to go, hey, I would like to rather use this kind of statement and not have that section at all, because yeah, we understand that you didn't need that anymore. Alternatively, it would be a bit of a redesign. Like if you specifically want to use the old CSMTH sp.eng, then guys, yeah, unfortunately, this would kind of be a case of deleting and probably pulling it over. So, you know, in this instance, you don't want this. You're like, you know what, I'm good. I don't need this section. You would need to probably do what I'm doing right now, which would actually be to remove it completely. And then you can, for example, move this over. So probably the easiest way around it would just be use one of the newer forms and just do the grayscale or whatever you need to there. And then, yeah. Because here, obviously now you're going to have to move all of that across. And so it's just recentering all of this basically. But yeah, so it would, it's a mini redesign basically to get rid of it. Although this is irritating me because I can't see my, yeah, and I can't. Okay, so yeah, guys, like basically you'd be playing around and doing a section and that kind of stuff. So this would be more redesign, whereas the other one you could just very quickly select one and edit it up a bit. So that would be the fastest way. Let me know if that works, but yeah, this would kind of be doing this and then just moving it around. Okay, okay, so on the quote, you put in the ship deliver and it's not printing. Okay. I just want to double check. So that would be from these fields on the right-hand side. So I'm assuming that it's here, ship, deliver, customer, supplier. So basically we've added this in. Remember, this is going to just put whatever you've put there. It's not going to tell them whether it's ship, deliver. And this should be pulling from, shouldn't matter quotation, but it should be pulling from here. So from the form. So this would need to be filled in here if I'm not mistaken. Please let me know the exact steps, because if it's not pulling through, it could be a bug, in which case I'll just need to log it for you. Okay, Yeah, guys, so I don't have anything in ship deliver actually, so that is something that I'd need to just test. So I would assume that this should pull directly from this section right here, unless it's trying to pull from here, from your customer supplier terms. Guys, with regards to your printers not printing stuff properly, that's not something that unfortunately I can help you with. That is your printer itself. So if the right-hand side of a document isn't printing, it could be to do with your printer font setup. So in Pastel, you need to check that printer font setup. Like I said, file, printer font setup. It could also be that your printer driver has corrupted, in which case you may need to go and uninstall and reinstall your printer. But first, check your printer font setup, please, and make sure that that is set up correctly for the different types, for the different tabs. Then go into your devices and printers in your control panel, and you're going to need to make sure that that is set correctly as well. But the truth is that if it is pushing the paper too far, then it could be a problem with the printer itself, and you may actually need your IT to assist you. So printing issues themselves, if it prints to screen and it emails, it means Pastel's okay, then there's probably a problem with the printer. Okay, so guys, with regards to point of sale, it uses two forms, actually. So if you are making changes with one, you need to make sure that you've deleted the other. So C slippy.eng. It creates something called, I think it's FRM. So guys, it will create something called FRM slippy or FRM slip or iSlippy, something, one of these will also be in your company folder at the same time. If that is the case, before you edit your C Slippy, you're going to need to delete the FRM Slippy and then come in and edit your C Slippy. Once you've done this, something that you do need to be aware of is that you, unfortunately, the point of sale slip itself, it needs to use very specific fonts. I know that I have I can't remember what they are, but we've got it where it doesn't align. And you need to make sure that you are using those specific fonts, but you've got to remove that FRM slip first, then save the C Slippy again, and then it will actually update the changes you've made. If you don't delete the FRM ENZ from your company folder, any changes you make on the C Slippy won't show at all. It just doesn't work. So guys, we've got this article, and obviously you want it to align, because no, it doesn't. It is horrible. So guys, it's got to be like Korea New 8. That's what we've seen works, but please make sure that you delete that FRM slip first. So please, please, please make sure that you delete that. Then you're going to come in, you're going to go into File, Printer Font Setup, pause, and you're going to make this Korea New. see if that works. That was what was working for us, but please make sure that you remove that other one first. Sorry guys, so Korean New Year's there. And the reason for that is because, as you'll see, all of the letters take up exactly the same space. So with Arial, the I takes up less space than the A, so it needs to, like the I and the A need to take up the same amount of space, otherwise it doesn't align. So try this, see if this works, but make sure that you remove that FRM I slip first. It should be an ENZ. Then go and double check your changes, and then, yeah, that should work. Okay. So I will copy this in there, and hopefully that'll fix it. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the link to that as well, just to help. Otherwise, guys, I'm not seeing any I'm not seeing any further questions. Okay, I do see that you've given me more info about the ship detail. It's something I want to test. Okay, so guys, I'll try to test that, and then I will give you feedback. Please send me an email, but it's something that I'm going to need to test. Yeah, the credit limits and stuff isn't going to print. That's not actually for printing. That whole thing is like, you've got to choose to put it on. So guys, please don't get confused between our process windows and what actually prints. So guys, a process window is specifically a process window. So this stuff isn't going to print unless you specify that it needs to print. But so if you know that, just don't worry about it. It's totally cool. But I just want to point that out. So sometimes I'll get people going, oh, it's not printing what my process screen shows. Guys, it's not going to. Your process screen is a process screen. What the form prints is what you tell the form to print. But I do want to check why or exactly what's happening. So if you can pop me that mail and go, hey, this is exactly what I've done. This is what I've found. This is where my stuff is and it's not working. I can then see why that's not, because obviously that field is here. We do have a ship field, so we do need to understand why that ship deliver isn't pulling through then, if it's not pulling through. And it could be a bug. There are on occasion some fields that haven't pulled through, and either they haven't pulled through or it's not the correct field for what you're trying to do. And then we'll just need to tell you, oh, it's not that, it's this one. And then you can put that on. So if you could just send me that email, I'll definitely test it out, because I'd need to go set up a couple of things, and that's obviously going to take quite a bit of time. So I'll definitely test that for you and provide feedback. Okay, guys, and I see that a hand is up. Is that because you're asking me to wait? Okay, no, I think that was just to let me know that you had sent it. Pop me that mail. Let's definitely have a look. And then I'll definitely test that for you and provide feedback if that's okay. Because it's going to need to be a test environment that I go through just to double check it and see why that's not coming through. Otherwise, guys, that's it for today. I do hope that this was helpful to you. I do hope that you learned a couple of things and a couple of tricks. And otherwise, guys, I hope that you have a fantastic day further. Please remember that I am running that Sage Pastel Accounting versus Sage Business Cloud Accounting webinar, as well as our other topic webinars. If you're not sure how to sign up for that, you can go to Sage City. Guys, if you go to Africa and Middle East, you can go to Sage Africa and Sage Accounting Africa and Middle East, or Sage 50 Pastel. The links are on both of them. And guys, basically you can see that the webinar is being advertised there. So I'm doing it again on the 19th, then on the 9th of September and the 23rd. To our BPs that are in this specific session, guys, if you are using both and you have some topics on Sage Business Cloud accounting that you would like me to run, similar to how I run the 50cloud topic webinars, please send me those topics, because from September or from October, I want to start running topic webinars for Sage Business Cloud accounting as well, so that if you are using both, or if you're using one, or you're looking to use one over the other, you can get the most from that package as well. The reason we run these webinars is to give you info, to give you tips, and to make sure you're getting the most out of your software. So guys, please bear that in mind. Sign up for that specific webinar. Let me know what topics you have for Sage Business Cloud accounting. Otherwise, that is it for me for today. Have a fantastic day further, guys. If you need anything with regards to the webinar, remember to email me, joanne.barnard@sage.com. However, if you have a support-related query, something's not working, you need to email support, guys. I'm not going to provide support, unfortunately, because I don't always get to the stuff timeously. If you do send me a support query, I will forward it to support. But that email is supportsa@sage.com. They will then be able to give you the assistance that you need. Otherwise, guys, again, have a fantastic day further, and we will see you at our next topic webinar in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Ciao, ciao.